Okay, let's have a look at this Grange firsthand. First things first, the colour in this stuff is amazing. It is really next level colour. It's sort of about a little bit like the density of couch grass, perhaps, let's say, but sort of the colour a little bit like ryegrass. So it's kind of like a warm season variety turf that sort of has a bit of a cool season appearance. So really keen to see that down in this section through here, which we're going to do today. First of all, we'll just start raking this area here through. Okay, that looks a lot better now. I've just scratched the surface loose, filled in a bit of Max's donuts. So what we'll do now is, as I said, we're going to put out the starter fert. So when you're laying any sort of turf, it's highly, highly advisable to put out a starter fertilizer. It just gives that lawn the best opportunity to establish itself, settle in, and it gives it all the essential ingredients and nutrients that it needs. The Lawn Solutions product that we're using, the Lawn Launcher, has the added benefit of having the water crystals in it. So once they get wet, they will turn to like a jelly. The roots can actually penetrate into that and they can get a bit more moisture as they need it. So that's a pretty cool product to use. This bucket here, we'll put this whole bucket out, that'll cover this area. And yeah, we'll chuck it out with the spreader. And from there on in, it's just a matter of laying out turf. When you're laying out turf, and if you're using particularly a product such as Lawn Launcher that has those water crystals, it's important that you put that beneath the turf because we don't want the jelly on top of the lawn because it's not going to do anything. No matter what product I'm using, I always like to put my fertilizer underneath the turf, and it sort of gets it closer to where it needs to be. Takes away any potential leaf burn, and it generally doesn't, you won't find it's going to do any damage to the root system. So we've got it there fairly evenly now. I'm happy with that. So from here on in, we can start rolling out turf, and then we'll talk about the best practice to lay a nice lawn. When you're trimming around obstacles and stuff like this sprinkler here, for example, a pair of hedging shears do a pretty fine job. When you're laying out rolls of turf, a few key things to keep in mind. Start with one straight roll. So do what I'm going to call a leader roll, and every roll of turf that you lay after it should never overtake the first roll. So what we're going to do here now, we could do one of two things. We can either continue going this way for a moment, but what we'll do is, just for the demonstration here, the next roll we get, we're actually going to cut it in half, which will create a brick pattern in our lawn. So when the lawn grows together, it's a more of a brick pattern like on the retaining wall there, rather than just everything lining up with each roll being exactly the same. So it's sort of a staggered pattern, I guess you could say. So we'll do the next one here now. We'll cut it in half, and then we'll lay a full roll after it, which will still bring it back. Then the next one will be a full row, half roll, etc. So these last two rolls, we'll cut one and we'll lay the other one after it. So as you can see here, what you end up with, as I said before, is your staggered pattern, and that'll continue all the way along. The next roll will be a solid roll. The next one will be that half roll as we work across and start laying it out. Well, already that looks so much better. It looks really good. Special shout out to Pete from next door for jumping over and giving us a hand just to get this down. So all I'm gonna do now is we're just gonna trim up some of the edges around the side there that need trimming up. Again, just using the hedging shears. Then we're gonna get some water on this. It's very important, obviously, to get water on, particularly on these hot and sunny days. If it hasn't been raining particularly as well. We've been kind of lucky today because the turf is fairly wet, which made the rolls heavy. The sand is quite wet. It's been quite cloudy and overcast. A bit of sun coming out now, but we'll trim up these edges, trim up the other side there. Well, I've got to be honest, I'm really impressed with how this has turned out. Even though it's only just been laid and it hasn't even remotely begun to establish itself, it really looks spot on here. Now, from here on in, it's really important to keep the water up to this Grange Zoysia as it's establishing. Now, it's sort of, you treat it a little bit like a slow growing cooch. So if it's slow to grow, it's going to be slower to establish. It's going to require a little bit extra water than some other grasses during the establishment phase, but once it is properly established, it's got its roots down nice and deep, this stuff is quite drought tolerant. So I'll probably water this probably 3 times a day for the first week, just little regular amounts. In fact, what I might do is I'll put a link up on the screen. Lawn Solutions themselves have put together a really cool watering schedule, suggestion, recommendation, if you will, for all sorts of new turf varieties that they sell, including Grange Zoysia. So I'll put that up. I might even do it as a QR code. But anyway, so from here in, it is now going to be a matter of putting on the water. When this has rooted down and we can't actually lift it up, is probably the first time we're going to give it a light mow. And it's probably going to put us, I'm probably going to put a cylinder mower straight on this, probably about 20 mil. I reckon you want to keep this sort of a lawn, particularly probably south of Brisbane, you want to keep this probably north of 15 mil. So I think if I keep it at 20, it's going to give us a pretty nice lawn. Now, I'm not going to be doing anything crazy with this for the first 12 months. I'm going to leave it for the first 12 months. I'm going to let it settle right in. That is the key. Do not go too hard on this grass too soon. It'll end in tears. Let it settle in, let it establish, and then we'll start really playing with it in 12 months' time. But from here on in, I'm really happy. And that was also the key of giving it a really good preparation. Like I said, harped on. Preparation, groundwork is the key to this lawn. And we've put it in and it's remarkably smooth. It's so level. Everything's trimmed up nicely. This grass is lush. So here we are now. It's been 9 days since we laid this turf and I'm absolutely blown away about how this has taken hold, how it's actually already starting to grow quite substantially. I really had conditioned myself for this to be a very, very slow growing, slow to establish sort of grass. And that is true. It will be slow to establish compared to other varieties like Tiff Tuff and Kikuyu, etc. But I think maybe I gave this a little bit of a disservice because I thought it would be slower than what it is. And as I have a look now, it's already starting to root down quite substantially. Like that is looking really good. I don't want to pull it right up, but that has really quite surprised me. So it's clearly happy here. Now, as far as watering goes, the watering that I have been doing, or the schedule I've been doing, is 10 minutes, 5 times a day. So 10, 12, 2, 4, and 6. Being 9 days in now, I'm gonna actually cut that back. And for this next week, I'm actually just gonna halve the amount of water. So I'm gonna bring it back to 5 millimeters, 5 times a day. And from there, I'll assess it in another week's time and probably cut it back a bit further. Thought what I'd do is I'm gonna apply some of this lawn kelper from Lawn Solutions. Now it's basically a seaweed based product with some NPK and it's even got a tiny bit of iron in it as well. Now obviously seaweed solutions like this one, it's going to help the root development, it's going to help the leaf development, it's going to help to, not that this is really stressed out, but it's going to help this lawn just deal with these more challenging times. So I'm not normally one for a hose on pack, but because I still want to keep off this lawn for the moment, I thought this is a good way to reach over the whole area without actually walking on the turf itself. So a 2 litre hose on here We'll cover up to 150 square meters. This is 115, so there'll be a little bit left over. That's fine. And then it does also suggest at the end just giving it a light water, which should actually line up perfectly with the next irrigation cycle, which is due at lunchtime. So let's get this one out and give this lawn a little bit more of a kick. From here on in now, all we're going to do is just adjust our watering times now. So as I said, after this 9 days, we're just actually going to halve it. So half the amount of time, but the sprinklers are still going to have the same frequency, and we'll just see how that goes over the next week. So all we need to do is head in here and we can go programs, edit, zones, 5 minutes, save. We're going to have a heap more content coming up with this Grange Zoysia. In fact, the next one will be its first mow, and I am going to put a cylinder mower on it. Anyway guys, look, we'll wrap up for now. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and share, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on the Aussie Lawn.